We've seen how Anthony Albanese handles questions he can't answer, but how do other politicians do it? This week at the National Press Club, Greens leader Adam Bandt had his own train wreck when he was asked what the wage index price was.
You said in the speech that wages growth wasn't going particularly well. What's the current WPI?
Well, Google it, mate.
Just Google it. We don't have to know anything about our own policies or how they work. And do you know why?
I am sick. If you want to know why people are turning off politics, it's because what happens when you have an election that increasingly becomes this basic fact-checking exercise between a government that deserves to be turfed out and an opposition that's got no vision. This is what happens. Elections should be about a contest of ideas. Politics should be about reaching for the stars and offering a better society.
Wait, so voters shouldn't be allowed to fact-check? That's crazy. Fact-checking is one of the most crucial parts of an election. If you have a person talking about how poorly wage growth was going under the Morrison government, they should be able to say what the rate of growth was. It's his speech. He didn't have to talk about wages, but look how cranky he was to be asked for more details about his own ideas. Instead of just being professional, he rambles on about reaching for the stars, a statement which means nothing in a policy discussion. Now, to be fair to Albanese and his team, they must be looking at the coverage of this incident and scratching their heads. The media completely let Bandt off the hook, with some journalists seemingly holding him up as a hero for hitting back at unfair questions. Just because the Greens won't win a majority, they could still help form government. We should scrutinise their big ideas as much as any major party. Evan, I'm really interested in your take on the National Press Club performance for Adam Bandt. Obviously, there were lots of moments where he was not quite telling the truth, but this was a key one. It had a lot of similarities to Anthony Albanese, and what I saw was a lot of cheeky coverage about, oh, just Google it in headlines of news stories. Are they not taking the Greens seriously? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, this was an outrageous moment from Anthony Albanese, and really, it's not Anthony Albanese, Adam Bandt, and really both of them. But the media's reaction to it as well, I found really unsettling. Like, you saw Guardian journalists basically cheering on Adam Bandt's position of abusing journalists after years of coverage about how Trump abusing journalists was the end of the world. But it goes to important economic policy issues as well. He didn't understand the difference between $100 million in turnover and $100 million in profit, so he didn't have Emma Alberici there. But that's a really important question. Businesses with $100 million in turnover might not be actually making that much money and might be putting everything into paying their staff and trying to keep their business afloat after 2 years of lockdowns. And I think Greg Sheridan put it well in that Adam Bandt's policies and the Greens' policies would be a disaster both on an economic level and a national security level. Some of their climate mandates would directly cause harm to Australia and help prop up Arab states and Russia by making ourselves reliant on windmills and solar panels, 90% of which are imported from China. So Adam Bandt does have a lot of questions to answer. But the media especially cheering on the abuse of journalists, cheering on the fact that he wasn't able to answer a basic question. When you make your whole economic policy about increasing wages, you're going to want to know the wage price index, which he didn't do. So I think, as Paul Murray said, it was a home game for Adam Bandt and the Greens being at the press club. But people would look at this and think, this is really, really disappointing. And I think it shows the pressure of Adam Bandt. The Greens have had hundreds of people leave their party to go campaign for these Teal independents. So he's really struggling to get any media attention at all. So he has to pull off stunts like this.
And Lisa, why do you think the media isn't as interested in details or holding to the same standard as to be fair to Anthony Albanese? I do imagine if Anthony Albanese had responded in that aggressive just Google it mate way, they wouldn't have taken it as lightly.
Well, you're right, and it is a passive-aggressive way to answer that question. You would not expect any politician to stand up here and just turn it back on the press pack and say, Google it, mate. It is not acceptable. And as a media strategist, it is not the advice that you would give any politician nor client. So obviously Adam Bandt is trying to shift the needle, and it is the left media have, as you say, applauded him for taking on this aggressive approach, but they would never in the world let Scott Morrison or any coalition politician or candidate get away with being that. They would say, full stop, it is arrogant, and that is exactly what it is. And he's saying ridiculous things like nuclear submarines are floating Chernobyls. Like,
yes.
When is this man going to be held to account by the media across the board? Yeah, it should be the ABC, the left media, all journalists. Do your job and ask the tough questions. When I was a reporter on the road and somebody just turned back and said, Google it, mate, it's not good enough. That should have been criticism, an opportunity to criticise him and hold him to account, not applaud him for trying to change the narrative on how we talk about elections and gotcha questions. It's not good enough. And I think if you are considering voting for the Greens, you need to look at that. Here is a man that isn't going to take the time to give you anything but motherhood statements.
Well said. Floating Chernobyls was another horrible one that he said there.